Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, D3 Topics Gamer, and I have a kind of odd video. This isn't exactly like a review of Black Myth Wukong. I just kind of want to share my honest thoughts of it, having only had a chance to really play it for about 20 hours. Now, unfortunately, I did end up quitting this game right at the end of Chapter 3. It just kind of got to a point where I was working on a really big video that I recently uploaded. It took me an entire month to kind of finish editing. It took all my time, so I didn't have a lot of time to actually play this game. And just kind of giving my overall experience up to that 20-hour mark, I just kind of figured, you know what, I don't need to play more of this. I think I've played enough to kind of give my overall initial thoughts on it. So if you do happen to enjoy this little just honest opinion video on Black Myth Wukong, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Keep tracking on my future videos. And remember, if you guys have any requests for any ranking videos, discussion videos, or just any types of video at all, please let me know what you would like to see, and I will try to get it up as soon as I can. So overall, Black Myth Wukong, it was originally a game that I did want to play when it first came out, and I understand why a lot of people really love this game, and why for them it would have been their game of the year for 2024. This game looked like a Souls game at first, and I'm not very good at those types of games. Those games are like frustratingly hard to the point where it just puts people in a rage, so I was worried about that. It didn't end up being as hard as I thought. I mean, there were a couple of tough moments. Oh, and just guys, give you a heads up, all the footage you will be seeing in this video is of my own gameplay that I was able to record on my PlayStation 5. It was okay. I mean, I'll go over things that I liked about it. I did like the overall look. I did like the visuals. I like the art style. Some of the combat is okay. However, there's just a couple of aspects of it I would have easily have changed. One thing, I would have gotten rid of the stamina bar. I just not a fan of that. I would have found a way to recover mana. I wasn't a big fan of how in combat you're limited with the amount of mana, and there's not an effective way to recover it. I mean, there's little perks you can equip to your monkey that allows you to kind of gain mana, but it would have been nice if there were some sort of potions, or you could upgrade your little wine to actually recover mana. That was annoying. So you actually had to be kind of specifically careful when you want to use your powers. I would have liked if that had been removed in general. Another thing I liked the music. I liked how it presented some of the cutscenes. It was kind of doing it in a cartoon, anime style. So I thought that was pretty cool. But where the problem for me, the biggest problem I had with Black Myth Wukong, without question, was the story. I don't really feel like there's a plot. I understand the story of the monkey and all these characters is kind of based off of I think it's called Travel to the West. I think that's what it's called, and that's kind of inspired a whole bunch of different types of franchises. But there seems to be a premise, and the premise was that there was this powerful monkey warrior, and he died, and his essence got split in 5 or 6 different parts, and you're playing this monkey who can't seem to talk, and you're just kind of going around across 5 chapters just trying to recover these parts together for some reason. I don't like how there was a plot that was kind of made the story easier to explain. I understand the premise of we need to recover these parts, but the journey to do them, it just felt like all it was start off with a boss fight, do a little walking, go to another boss fight. They might say something that you don't quite understand, but it's not really important. Beat them, go to the next boss fight, do a little exploring, boss fight, and that's really it. It's just boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, boss fight. And maybe that's what the point was, because apparently there's 90-something bosses in this game, which is kind of crazy. But I just wish that there was more to do than just going from point A to B to C, doing a little level grinding, and it's just boss. I just wish there was more to it. And so that element wasn't fun. Another thing that I also was not a fan of was the camera. I don't know about you guys, but the lock-on system for this was at times awful. If you want to play a game that has a really good lock-on system, play something like old school Kingdom Hearts. The problem I had with the lock-on system is that it seemed to not work well with the camera. And at times you actually had to control the camera yourself. When I lock onto a target, I need them to always be in front of me. And because the whole point of these boss fights is that you need to understand position, where you are in a closed off space, and you need to keep them always in your sight so you can dodge their attack patterns. Because that's what a lot of these bosses comes down to. It's just understanding attack patterns, knowing the right moment to dodge, knowing the right move to attack, when to back off, when to go on the offense. And another thing that's also stupid, why couldn't we block? Like our weapon was a staff. Like that's a very defensive weapon. Why wasn't there like a definitive block? Like it would have been nice. Like even in something like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, there's like you have like a bar of how much you can block. That would have been nice. Like you can dodge and block. I think having a block function would have worked for like maybe the stamina bar. Get rid of the stamina bar, add like a defensive like strength bar. That would have been nice. That would have been nice. That would have made things a little bit easier. And at times during these fights, the camera would like, if I'm like up close, like the lock-on system works by making sure your character is pointed in the right direction of the target. But sometimes the camera will be between yourself and the target. So sometimes it's blocking your view of your character. And because of it, a lot of times I couldn't see what the person, what the enemy was about to do because the camera was blocked by the enemy itself. So I had to actually move the camera, and by the time I did that, I was getting hit. And I felt that was annoying. Like it needs to be zoomed out, and no matter where this thing goes, it needs to be locked on. It needs to be always in front of me so I know exactly how to maneuver, when to dodge, when to attack. And for some boss fights that had like bigger spaces, it wasn't a problem, but for a lot of these fights that are taking place in these closed off, smaller areas, it just didn't work at all. And another thing that I wasn't just a big too fan of was like there was just the level of difficulty. There's some that are difficult, and then there's some that aren't. So I think the difficulty element was a little exaggerated because there were some boss fights that I've seen people have like a lot of difficulty with. I think it just requires you to do a lot of extra stuff to make it easier. And I think in that sense, I think the game rewards you. Like if you're willing to do side quests to get like these extra tools, then some of these boss fights are easier to handle. So that was an element that I really appreciate because I don't like just going through the game really fast. I like taking my time and actually exploring and doing little side missions and getting little exclusive weapons or perks or equipment that help my journey faster. That was one element I really did like. I think the RPG element and the customization and the level up system was absolutely fantastic. I didn't have a problem with that. Weapon upgrades, stuff like that, that was also fine. I think overall, I think this is a good game. It's just for my schedule, I just don't have enough time to commit. If I was to do an official review of this, I probably would have ended up giving it a 7. Simply because I think the targeting system for the smaller boss fight areas just doesn't work very well, and it actually makes the game harder than it has to be, and I just flat out just could not get into the story. It needed to really find a way to tell it in a way where like every step is important. Every character, like a lot of characters just kind of come in and then they disappear and then you never hear from them again. And I just felt like had they been able to present the story better so that I understand it and I'm a lot more invested. Like the fact that your monkey does not talk at all hurts. And I'm not saying you can't play a game with a protagonist that doesn't talk and you can't make it work. Because a good example of that is like the old school version of Dead Space. In that one, Isaac Clarke does not talk at all. And so it is how this mute character, it's how the world around him interacts with him. That is how the story is progressed. And I think this one tried to do it, but it's not as well presented, at least in my opinion it was. And I don't feel like watching like 10 different explanation videos that kind of simplify the story. I think the game needs to be able to do that on its own. And so I think that was just an absolute failure on the developer's part. Overall, I can see why people love this game. I can see why they would prefer it to win Game of the Year. But for me, I just didn't have enough time to get through it. And it got to a point where I got to a boss fight at the end of chapter 3 who's fighting this lightning staff. I lost to him 3 times, and I was at the point where I was like, you know what? The game isn't too hard. I have had fun up to this point, but the story is just not good enough for me to care to progress forward. That's why I felt like I could kind of stop the game after 20 hours and just kind of give my overall thoughts. So again, I would probably give it like a 7. But that's just me. It's just the story just doesn't work, and I wish the lock-on system would just worked a little bit better. But overall, I do think that you can have a lot of fun, and I would highly recommend to anybody who's curious about this game who hasn't had a chance to play Black Myth Wukong. So those are my honest thoughts on Black Myth Wukong after playing it for like only 20 hours. I would like to know if you guys had a chance to play it much longer, or if there's something that you didn't like or something that you would have improved. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. Share them with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.